Today's video, I do want to talk about a thing called agency, or at least player choice, and giving everyone at the table the ability to make choices in a game of Commander, which inherently makes the game a lot more fun, collaborative, and memorable. Really, it's an excuse to gush about 3 cards that I absolutely love, and a 4th special category too. One of those cards I've already previewed recently. So really this is a bit of a gushy, I love this card design kind of video, but I do think playing more of these cards in your deck will make games of Commander more fun, by giving everyone a chance to join in, even when they're mana screwed or unable to cast spells or behind in the game. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and before we jump into the full video, a quick message from today's sponsor. This is Luxury Playstyles. They make an incredible range of luxury accessories for board games and card games, including Magic the Gathering. It's quite a premium priced product, but essentially it's like a great option for a special gift for a friend or loved one, especially if they've got a penchant for making a particular kind of thing. For example, if they're playing an angel deck, these angel tokens are incredible, and they come with the angel, the 4/4 flying sort of on one side and not on the other. I'm quite enamored by the soldier token. It is a 1/1 soldier when my camera focuses, which is a lifelinker on one side and not on the other, because I'm using this for Abdul Adrian to represent how many soldiers I've made by putting little things into his orifices. And I believe the Goblin is their latest one as well. It's got the embossed full art thing on the back, and then well, it's all embossed, but I mean, like, it's sort of textless. They are gorgeous. Even my wife was shocked at how high quality these were. And what I mean by that is that she doesn't play Magic, so she doesn't give a shit about this stuff. The food tokens are these little pies with numbers on them. They are just gorgeous little play pieces. If you check out their website, it's not just Magic. They've got X-Wing, Keyforge, Lorcana, Star Wars Legion, and some incredible stuff for Arkham Horror. I don't play Arkham Horror regularly, but these tokens absolutely would elevate a game of Arkham Horror. They are gorgeous. Check out the link to Lux Play in the description below, and use the coupon code PLEASANT at checkout to get 15% off your order. You can find them at Vegas, booth number 5200. And as a heads up, I reached out to them for this, by the way. I just said I really like their stuff and wanted to talk to them, and it became this, a little sponsor spot to show off some really cool, bespoke, luxury sort of stuff. I hope you enjoyed it too. Let's talk about some cards that I love. Let's begin by explaining what I mean by agency. When we talk about player agency, we're normally talking about how developers or designers of a game give players openness or ability to plot their own paths or make their own decisions within the game. And in a game of Magic the Gathering, it normally comes down to, especially in Commander, how many choices players get to make about what they're doing. Agency is a huge part of Magic in general, and normally when a player gets more agency, which allows them to be creative or express skill expression, those things normally foster into a positive environment in which players walk away feeling happy, good competitive environments, and fun social experiences. These situations come throughout the whole stretch of Magic. So like from picking the commander you will play, the card choices that you make, the power levels and the pre-game discussions, and then how you sequence your plays, what you cast and when, hit my microphone then, where you point your removal spells, so on and so on and so on. And player agency often breaks down when you don't have tools or resources to apply to achieve agency, to achieve choices that you can make that allow you to feel like you are making impacts on the game and creating the outcome that you get to. Enter stage left, cards like Council's Judgment. This is an absolute fucking classic of a Magic card, originally printed in Conspiracy, that makes use of something from Conspiracy called Will of the Council. I think there's a lot of space for going back to the Will of the Council cards. Of course, the Expropriate is a card that everyone hates, but something like Plea of Power, for example, is a 4-mana sorcery that says starting with you, each player votes for time or knowledge. If time gets the most votes, take an extra turn after this one. If knowledge gets more votes, or the vote is tied, draw 3 cards. Now, the problem with Plea for Power is that there's a very clear outcome that is just better for the player casting it, right? Most people are going to let you draw 3 cards. 4 mana to draw 3 cards isn't the hottest. Most people aren't going to allow you to take an extra turn. There are situations with Plea for Power where you can make an allegiance, though. If you vote for time and another player at the table is your ally because you're fighting against another player at the table who is stronger than you, say player A is your ally and player C is too far ahead, player A might even be able to be convinced to vote time as well, so you get a draw. However, in the case of Plea for Power, the draw sucks. You still draw 3 cards. Meanwhile, Expropriate is 9 mana and has Council's Dilemma from Conspiracy 2. Starting with you, each player votes for time or money. For each time vote, take an extra turn after this one. For each money vote, choose a permanent owned by that voter and gain control of it. Exile Appropriate. This is much better than Plea for Power for 2 reasons. One, it's the Council's Dilemma, where you get like something for each of the choices made, allowing your opponents to interact with you in some ways, but ultimately both sides are pretty fucking brutal. An extra turn is terrible, but stealing their best permanent is also terrible. There's a reason why Expropriate is over $10 and why people get a little bit groany when they hear it get cast. Anyway, back to the topic at the top of this, which was Will of the Council on Council's Judgment. 3 mana, starting with you. Each player votes for a non-land permanent you don't control. Exile each opponent with the most votes or tied for most votes. When you cast the Council's Judgment, what this card does is it gives even players who are tapped out or mana screwed the ability to interact with the board state. They get choices off the back of your card. They're going to sit up in their chair and be active in the game. And if you can get all 4 players active in the game of Magic, it is, it's the best way to play Commander. Now, when you put it on the stack, what you really need to do is hold priority and start talking to the table about what people are going to vote for and how. Because the voting, in a way, once the voting starts, I believe you should just vote and be done. That's how I think you should resolve this, if we're honest. So I think a conversation should happen and resolve before you go to voting, at which point you can, during that conversation, discuss what's on the board and what needs dealing with. Now, Council's Judgment, allowing everyone to get a choice, does have some upside for the person casting it. It does break the symmetry of the effect a little bit by explicitly saying that the permanents that you control cannot be chosen. Some of you might be thinking, you know, this isn't really choice, it's the illusion of choice. No, I think it would play a power to the illusion of choice because everyone always votes to give you 3 fucking cards, and even when you tie, you get 3 cards. Council's Judgment, on the other hand, allows so many interesting situations to happen. If all 4 players vote for 4 different things, all 4 things get exiled, and none of them are the player casting Council's Judgment. Huge upside for you, but it also allows the table to communicate and work together to remove multiple problem permanents. If one player is hugely ahead, they'll lose 2 things. Meanwhile, other players will lose 1 thing. However, because of the voting order, it happens in like a table order that changes the dynamic of the spell. So for example, the player to my left is out of fucking control and I vote for one of their things. They can vote for the same item, at which point the next 2 players can either vote for the same item again and we just get rid of 1 item and it's more fair. And sometimes people don't want to pressure one player if they're not that far ahead. So that's what happens. Everyone communicates and does the same item. But if there's 2 votes on 1 item over here for player B to my left, there's a good chance that the other 2 players look at each other, nod, and then they both vote for another permanent under that player's control. Both are tied, both are gone. That's the great thing. Exile each permanent with the most votes or tied for most votes. So that means that 4 things can go or 2 things can go if there's 2 votes. I had a situation recently where I cast Council's Judgment with the intention of basically getting rid of the problematic commander to my left. So I chose the commander to my left. And the next player picked something else on the board, which was the commander of player D, let's say. We get round to player D, and they're like, okay, I've got the choice of exiling another permanent under the control of player C for spite, really screwing over player B by hitting a second permanent because there's 3 things all voted for, or I can vote for one of the original ones to make that one the most voted for thing and thus turn off the fact that my commander's getting killed. They did that. It gave them agency and choice, and it was a really fun moment that I remembered, and after the game we all talked about. It fucking ruled. And I think people should play more cards like this that allow their other players at the table to do stuff, but not in a way that like absolutely breaks the game wide open. I was considering including like howling mine effects in this conversation, but they are a bit too... They normally push the player who's ahead further ahead, or if one player's got a better deck at the table, they're drawing better quality cards. So that sort of stuff does increase agency and player interaction in the game, but in a way that's not quite as clean as Council's Judgment. And then we come to the black version of this, essentially, which was released recently in Decimal Commander. It was in the deck that I got to preview, so I've got a soft spot for already. I fucking love Vagabond. But Statistic Shell Game is a 5-mana sorcery saying, starting with the next opponent in turn order, each player chooses a creature you don't control, destroy those chosen creatures. It's Council's Judgment all over again, except you can't tie the voting and all creatures getting chosen are dying. But again, it's not for the player casting it, but it's a 5-mana sorcery, so it should have some upside for the person casting. They are the one expending a card from their hand after all, should get something out of that resource spent. But at a 4-player table, 4 things are dying, and it starts with the player to your left, which is the cool thing about this is that you get last pick. So you can pick just a random, like, incidental thing that gets hit in the crossfire, or you can pick the extra commander of the person who didn't pick the thing that you wanted them to pick, and so on. Again, stick on the stack, hold priority, and say, right table, let's talk. What are people thinking of voting for or picking in their Sadistic Shell game? And again, people will sit up and they will pay attention and conversations will begin. If you have tables that don't discuss what is the threat or what isn't the threat, play some Sadistic Shell games, play some Council's Judgments. These cards are less than $1. They are so good at getting people involved in a game of Magic. As is my 3rd pick for this category, and this card fucking rules. I've already gushed about this in another video that isn't out yet on the channel, and this might end up coming out first. So I'm sorry if you've seen this already on one of my other videos, but I will not shut up about Fraying Line. Fraying Line is a 4-mana artifact from Battle of Baldur's Gate, one of my favourite sets of all time. It says when it enters the battlefield, put a rope counter on target creature you control. So one of your creatures grabs onto the rope. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player pays 2, or may pay 2. If they do, they put a rope count on a creature they control. Otherwise, exile fraying line on each creature without a rope count on it, then remove all rope counts from all creatures. In essence, it's a wonderful evocation of this idea of a rope that you're all grabbing onto or tying yourself onto or hooking onto your belts. And the people that don't spend the time doing that, when the rope snaps towards the bottom or like the floor collapses out from under you, whatever the D&D thing is, you fall into the pit. The chasm of doom, you are exiled. What this does in a game of Magic is you get to cast it, be a manic little pixie of putting a rope counter on your commander or best permanent creature, and then pass the turn. And now a conversation has to be had. Thoughts need to be thought. That's an obvious statement. People need to think about what the fuck they're doing, and that starts up conversations, questions, and choices being made by everybody at the table. I say this, in reality, if the player to your left just doesn't pay and the world blows up, which is quite often what fraying line does, then there's not really that much of a conversation, but people will bargain with them. People will ask, please pay the 2, I don't want to lose my board state. I'll make an alliance with you, and it starts off politicking and conversations, allegiances, and the best bits of Commander. I fucking love it when people are like making little allegiances that are little, they'll backstab, you don't know when it's going to happen, but someone's going to do it at some point. That bit of Commander is one of my favorite parts of the format. Like I said, a lot of group hug effects and group slug effects do add agency and choices to your opponents by just giving them more resources, whether it be mana or card draw. Something I thought about putting in the video as well was the villainous choice. So Great Intelligence Plan is a card that I love this card. It is 6 mana, draw 3 cards. The target opponent faces a villainous choice. They discard 3 cards, or you may cast a spell from your hand without paying its mana cost. Of course, you'd be paying some obnoxious, dumb shit in your deck to really get the upper echelons of what this card can do. If you draw into Omniscience and cast that, my goodness, I'll put it into play. Whoa, baby, you are off to the races. But in reality, these cards aren't quite the agency that I'm talking about with Council Judgment, the Static Shell Game, and Fraying Line, because this card, the villainous choice thing often feels like one of the options is way worse than the others. Of course, there are situations where that isn't the case. If you have an opponent who's got a Reliquary Tower in play and 30 cards in hand, they're going to discard 3 cards. But if you cast this on turn 6 after a Wrath when everyone's clambering for resources, and no one is going to discard 3 cards, they're going to spin the dice and let you cast a spell for free. In theory. Neither side is good, but I just feel like it's more one-sided than things like Council Judgment, Fraying Line, and Static Shell Game for getting the whole table to have a conversation. But that said, when you cast Great Intelligence Plan at a table, the other 2 players will have strong opinions upon what the player you're targeting should do. And again, that's part of what I like. The conversation is started. Commander is rolling, baby. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let me know if you're picking up any luxury playstyle stuff. Let me know if you're checking out at Vegas. And let me know if you're at Vegas. I'm at Vegas. I will see you at Vegas. I am very excited to play Commander, hang out, and meet people, viewers of the channel, and so on. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Ta-ta for now.